What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Huddle. For those of you who don't recognize me, my name is Kelitah, and I'm here with my amazing co-host.
Hello. Given Illustrative, and I hope this topic is less spicy.
Oh my gosh, he's talking about our last conversation. If you haven't watched it,
Yeah,
you must
you
just go watch
definitely
it.
need to go
You
check
just-
it out.
It's link
Yeah,
in the bio.
I think it's the most polarized we've ever been.
I think so.
Yes.
But like at the same time, like not really. Like
Yeah, it wasn't polarized.
it was different. Okay, let me say I didn't expect your takes.
Yeah, I did warn you though.
You did. and none taken because I did trigger you.
Yes.
So it's okay.
Yes.
But definitely, we are gonna have another great conversation. I don't think it'll be as polarizing, but we'll see because you never know.
With Given.
You never know with Given. 1 week he's with you. Next week he's like, actually, there's more nuance to this conversation.
Yeah.
But that's what we're here for. We're here for the nuance. We're here for the conversation. So this week we're going to be having a very interesting discussion on modesty. So the title of today's topic is Reservation, Please. Because, be reserved. No?
Reservation, please. Okay. You
Cooking.
about about
I
these
really
last
did.
two titles, man?
I did. I really did. Give me my props in the comments, please.
No, definitely.
So we're going to be talking about modesty. And the reason being, I think it's very interesting in our particular generation. There is a very big push, especially to women, to be as scantily clad as possible
Yes.
without getting arrested.
Yeah.
And in fact, there were actually a couple of videos. I remember there was one that went viral. It was a South African video about this lady, and I believe she was wearing these shorts that are like a G-string basically. And she went to a mall, and there was basically, I didn't see the whole video, I just saw the aftermath.
Okay.
Where there's literally just people running, recording her because she got escorted out of the mall. Obviously, you're wearing a G-string in public, basically. And there's like a woman who's trying to cover her up, and everyone's like yelling at her, right? It was quite a lot.
Wow.
But
she
at
young?
the same, she was very young.
Okay,
I didn't see her
okay.
face. It was from the back.
Okay.
And then like you need to read the comments to get the context of what's happening. But I just thought that it was very interesting because there's always been an emphasis on women and how to dress and how to present yourself. And, with the escalating rise of feminism and, this is my body, I want to show it off, we're seeing quite ridiculous standards of being bold in your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think where I'd want to start the conversation is just like, I know we always say the reason as Christian women we should be dressing modestly is to help, is not to be a stumbling block. That's the one that they love to quote. It's actually what I didn't put the reference, but it says what is it? There it is. Therefore, let us not pass judgment on one another any longer, but rather decide never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of a brother.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing that we want to quote. The other one that we like to quote is 1 Timothy 2:9 about dressing modestly. And I just kind of wanted to see what this conversation looks like from a male's perspective. Because I think there have been lots of opinions, but I feel like your opinion will be balanced. So I just actually want to hear what your opinions on the topic is.
Yeah. I will definitely say this is just one of those. I will. You mentioned that you wanna have a more balanced conversation, right? I will honestly say that in my experience, it's quite interesting that the Bible tends to speak more towards women with regards to dressing modestly. It is quite interesting. Not to say that men are not guilty of not dressing modestly. The one thing I'm thinking of right now is the fact that I tend to see very often that between men and women, we tend to have very different problems.
Yeah.
Right? We cause very different problems within society.
Absolutely.
And you will find that one party is guilty of one thing than the other.
Yes.
Right? Even, and this is not to say that the one is not also guilty of it. Much like with the issue of domestic abuse,
Yes.
domestic violence, right? It's not to say that women don't do it. They do. It's just that men are more of vastly more aggressive, or
they have more strength in that department.
exactly.
So they do more damage.
Exactly.
It gets more attention.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to have to phrase that properly so that we're not misunderstood.
Yes.
Men commit more GBV, way more. More cases are due to because of men. And that's not to say that women are not involved,
Yes.
right? Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to say. So it's not just in terms of things like GBV, even in other things that you can think of them as I don't want to call them this is a terrible word. I'm thinking of the word perversions within society. It's a terrible word, but I mean things that just contribute negatively to society, whether it be sexually, whether it be criminal, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Particularly with what we're discussing today, I think this is definitely one of those issues where and it's very difficult. It's so difficult. I'll mention why. But this is definitely one of those issues where you find that women are more guilty of it.
Yes.
And I'm talking about dressing loosely, right? More women are guilty of it than you find men are.
Yeah.
And more often than not, and it's odd. It's actually quite odd, and it's quite interesting. But it's not to say that men are not guilty of it.
Yes.
But the guilt that men have also is quite different, right? Yes, men are guilty of, I would say, I love the fact that you introduced those scriptures, because those scriptures kind of get to the core and not necessarily what surface, right? Because we can say, who's more likely to wear, you walk into a mall and you find someone wearing something tight. It's more likely women.
Most likely women.
Someone wearing leggings, more likely women, that sort of define the body, right? And more likely to go to gym, leave gym in what they were wearing at gym, and just walk in the nearest supermarket. You understand what I mean? It's more likely women to do that. And but now the reason I love the fact that you brought on what is exactly at the core. This is talking more about causing someone to stumble.
Yeah.
Right? More causing someone to stumble, and more also dressing appropriately, more than dressing appropriately so as not to cause someone to stumble.
Yeah.
That's the end. I think guys are very, very, very guilty of that. And guys also have a tendency to I once had a friend who very innocently would be quite flirtatious, very innocently, and you would see that he gets a kick out of it, but he's a brother.
He's just
he's just a brother. And this is something that's quite a big problem amongst guys. And this is why I'm saying it's a very different problem. It's a very different problem. It's the dynamics of it. I mean, before even moving to that, let me just say it very clearly. Men are guilty of, going to gym, coming out in these very short shorts that show a defined body. And I think another reason why perhaps us men don't really see that as that big of a deal is perhaps we don't really know how it impacts women. And maybe that's one of the reasons. I don't know how right I am about that.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's something that I guess the feminists will be screaming at this anyway. But I think the whole point is people don't really see females as having problems with lust. If that makes sense.
Yes, that's true.
We always put
true.
that at the men. The men can't control themselves. You must dress yourself so that the men don't lose their minds. But I don't think it's fair for us to say that women don't have that desire as well. And I think especially in the Christian community, we need to be able to address that. Like, God made us with this particular desire so that we can procreate and be intimate in the setting of marriage, right? So I don't think it's fair for us to just, put the whole onus on females all the time. There are things that are attractive about the male body. That's why we are here. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
makes everything make sense for us.
Mm.
So I think that's a beautiful point that you bring up. Like, it's just that I think women have been, I guess, conditioned
Mm-hmm.
to just deal with it better. If that makes sense. You're not supposed to talk about it.
Mm.
You don't get to say, Pastor, I'm dealing with lust. You
I get
understand?
you.
I think
Yeah.
it's more controversial on a woman's side than if a man were to say, Pastor, I'm dealing with lust. You understand? I'm not sure. Am I losing my mind?
No. You're definitely not losing your mind. There is a truth around how the story and the narrative has been more women need to make sure that around men
Mm-hmm.
they address and they behave in an appropriate manner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think though that historically, I don't think that all cultures have just allowed men to be whatever they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Men have been held to very high standards in many different cultures.
Yes.
But I do agree that as far as dressing appropriately, and I do get why, but I also at the same time, I think it's been blown out of proportion. I remember talking to a guy who genuinely believed that, and it's very difficult to talk about because want to use appropriate terms for the platform we're
Yes.
on, right? Like he was talking about how he genuinely did not think that women have lust issues. He genuinely thought that the reason why men cheat is because we're the only ones that have
Had that
lust
issue.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't understand the fact that the idea of a libido is something women also experience, especially through certain ages.
Mm.
And I absolutely do agree with you that it is because this conversation is not had. It definitely because this conversation is not had. Now, someone might be stuck in something I said a while ago. Why does he say he understands?
Wow. I don't even remember that.
Like why does he say that what does he understand exactly? Right? So the thing I was basically getting at is the point that it's actually what I introduced in the beginning, that we're very different and our impact in society is very different.
Definitely.
It's definitely something that we should acknowledge. There is a difference, right? Not to say no, let me actually not start there. Let me rather start here. The female body is the most the most admired I don't know how to say what I want to say. No, here's basically what I want to say.
Yes, sir.
Men cannot compete with the female body, right?
Mm.
Even females follow females for the female body.
Yeah, no.
You have women who follow women. It's like, yo, I like how her looks. I like how her looks. You understand? And that's the point I'm trying to get to. That a man cannot compete with that. There women have people, both men and women, who follow them. And it should say something to you when women themselves follow other women for their bodies.
Sure.
Guys don't do that.
Sure.
The only reason I would follow a guy for his body is not because they have a nice body and they were born with these beautiful curves, and I wouldn't do that. It's if I'm busy bodybuilding and I'm looking for inspiration.
Yes.
That's literally the reasons are more function than appreciation.
That makes sense.
You know, I don't sit looking at magazines and being like, oh my goodness, this guy's body. It's actually just to draw inspiration. I want to have this bicep.
Yeah.
I want to have these cuts, right? And it should tell you something, that I'm sure there is someone watching this right now who has a girl that they follow on Instagram simply because they like how their build, how they look, how pretty they are. You know, I know people who are in the entertainment industry who are there because of women who are there because of their looks. So the point being, it is to a certain extent, it's much like how when we were discussing who's this the movie was done about it, is it what's her name, the one who saved Israel through her looks?
Oh, Esther.
Why do you think there's no man story?
Listen. Listen.
Right? Yeah, so there is that to acknowledge, right? And I do think the reason that I was saying that I understand why, I think it has a lot to do with that. The fact that the female body has, it has a certain power that comes with
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and therefore bears certain responsibility.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you you're the flame today. I'm so glad you mentioned that because
Mm-hmm.
I was actually thinking about why is it so difficult for us to have this conversation as women, as Christian women? It's always a fight. You can see any video on
That's
TikTok,
interesting.
it's always a fight.
Mm.
Every time I go on TikTok and you see a video on modesty and guys, let's not wear this, there's always a fight. And these are all Christian women.
Imagine.
There's always a fight. No, you're being religious. Ah, it's religious. No, 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 no. And I think I was just wondering to myself, why is this such a thing that's really hard for women to give up?
Mm.
Why is this such a fight? And it brought me back to the Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
I'll get there. Don't worry. Let's lay context. So when God creates the man and the woman, he gives them dominion over the earth.
Yes.
So I think innately we want power. We've been
True.
created to have dominion on the earth.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we lost, when the fall happened, it got corrupted. We like to use our power in very terrible ways.
Definitely.
And I think one of the ways that we are aware of, as females, we are aware of, I can't say, there is no one who's ignorant to this fact, that our beauty is power.
Yeah. True.
And I think a lot of women know the privilege and the power that comes with looking beautiful,
Yes.
and how much you can enhance that by dressing in a certain manner. And I think also it's for some it's the power that comes with it.
Yeah.
For some it's wanting to have dominance over men and seeing them crumble under the power of your beauty.
True.
And I just thought that was something that we often don't speak about. And I don't know why. I think we always want to address the symptom instead of the psyche behind it. And if we understand that, okay, maybe this is why I just want the attention, I want the privilege, I want the power, I want the dominance that comes with me wearing a tight dress, and every head turns.
Exactly.
From
exactly.
the janitor to the CEO, everyone's looking at me.
Exactly.
And being able to say, okay, Lord, this is something that I'm dealing with. Why is it that I want so much power? Why do I want so much attention for my body? And maybe perhaps we have issues. Maybe we don't feel seen. Maybe we feel neglected. Maybe the only time people pay attention to us is when we're dressed in this manner. And I thought that was something worth mentioning. And I think men have the same thing. You were talking about your friend who was able to pull guys. I mean girls.
Yeah.
Just
I'm gonna say he definitely was
just flirty.
Yeah, quite flirty. Yeah, definitely. He did get girls' attention. I mean, he went to a few matric dances, which I was like, why are you going to more matric dances than me, dude? What is it about you?
As for than me.
What is it about you? You know, one thing that I think also still within the conversation of modesty that I feel like men actually for us it's an issue. Men tend to, and this is something that I'm quite passionate about, right? Especially because of how we are growing up, right? Because if you think about it, a lot of men actually only get attention from girls when they're much older, when you start working, you start being, so we learn that these things, money, cars, those things draw attention toward us, right? And it's, in fact, you actually find that men don't you don't need to be the best looking guy within the room.
Sure.
You understand? And as a result, for us, what we tend to, and which is also why you find that in a lot of industries where those industries are based on hierarchy, men tend to misbehave a lot in those industries.
Sure.
Right? A lot, especially when there's hierarchy involved, because men use power in order to attract female attention. That's where we fall short.
Sure.
And we know that women are susceptible to that power.
Sure.
Me coming to a group of girls walking, as opposed to me, and obviously this is not to group all women in one box.
Yes.
Not every guy is gonna turn his head at a woman walking with gym shorts, or it's not necessary. And I say that because if I'm gonna say women are attracted to power, someone's going to say not all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm going to say men are attracted to the female body,
Mm-hmm.
no one's going to
No
say
one's
no.
gonna say
the
you
point
lying.
the point being, there
Mm.
are things that, generally speaking, and
Mm.
even some women don't want to admit it, but there's a degree to which you find security.
Yes.
You understand what I mean?
Yes.
In a man being in a certain position,
It's true.
right? It's either he's the alpha within the room, or he is the alpha at work. He has a position, has certain qualifications, and it's not
Mm.
always material things like driving a car. And there's, honestly speaking, to a healthy degree, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But with the point I'm trying to raise is that those are the things that men abuse.
Yeah, sure.
Those are the things that men abuse. When I can tell you now, one thing I've seen work like magic: charisma. Yabona, a guy
Can
and
just-
charisma. Ay. Like that will just va.
It's done.
Quite honestly, you actually see it when you're in a group. I mean, we go to these camps ever so often, right? Where you meet there with people you've never met before.
Yeah.
And we'll all be sharing and sleeping in tents. And you actually see guys just use their charisma to just like a magnet, right? And you actually see it work, like capturing attention. And you're like, this is obviously it's not just the charisma. It'll be the charisma, the clothes that the guy is wearing. And those are the things that we as guys. And I suppose what I would say is unfair is that no one is going to stop you and say, you need to tone down your charisma.
Come on.
It's making all the women in the room
They're
attracted
weak.
to you.
The knees are nothing.
Yeah, you need to tone down your power. Like I mean, in the field, think of fields like even within the church, because the church is a bit hierarchical.
Yes.
That is a word, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there is hierarchy within church, and the hierarchy. I mean, these are scandals that exist within the church.
Come on.
Not every church, but they do exist. Those positions actually do grant you access.
Yes.
Right? And they give you, and then you think of spaces like in academia, where it's like literally hierarchy. Even in every office, I mean, are you gonna not, the person who's in the CEO, the manager, those are the things, those are the positions that men use. And that's the place where we cause a lot of women to stumble.
Sure.
And I'm not just speaking about those who use those positions to take women by force. I'm also talking about those who know that the reason she's paying attention to me
is because of
where I am. Right? Because you've spoken to her weakness. But it's portrayed, it's viewed differently.
How do you control that as a man?
Yo.
Because okay, I'm a CEO, so now I must, as a Christian, because I don't want baby girls to stumble, I must go down. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But how do you how would you say that a man who is in a powerful position can be mindful, who is single and loves the Lord and is not trying to do too much? How do you get yourself in the position where you, I guess, are, it's almost that part in 1 Timothy 2 verse 9.
Yeah.
He talks about not only being modest, but he also speaks about not being showy, flashy. So he says, don't wear gold, don't adorn yourself with gold and have elaborate hairstyles.
Yes.
Which is not about your hairstyle is, too much, but it's showing your class, essentially. So how would you give advice to men who are in that position? They are highly successful, they're charismatic, and they want to please the Lord, and they don't want to make sister stumble, but they're not sure how to go about that.
You know the thing about men, which I feel like this is a story that's not often told. First of all, I want to say, I feel like we definitely should make this its own conversation.
Okay.
I definitely feel like there's so much to say. And the reason I say that is because, and maybe this will give you an idea of why. So guys go through their entire lives dealing with gatekeepers.
Sure.
That's something a lot of women cannot relate to. You are the gatekeeper, right? You always have to you say God sent you, I don't think so. We are always, or we go through life dealing with gatekeepers. Now imagine, ask yourself, imagine going through your entire life dealing with gatekeepers. That's all you know.
Sure.
Now you finally reach a position where most gatekeepers allow opening. It's a completely different world. And you know, a lot. I do give props to the women who admit it. And I also do understand to the women who complain about this. The fact that you find a lot of girls will say, ugh, guys annoy me, always coming into my DMs. Ugh, I'm annoyed. Guys always whistling. And you know what? I've actually heard women say, I actually wish a guy would do that.
Sure.
Like, just boost my ego. Not just boost my ego. Because at the end of the day, guys, we are flesh.
Yeah.
You know, we are flesh. Like, loneliness does a thing. Not just loneliness. You'll find that you're with a partner. Like, just there's something about us.
Being
we just
noticed.
Thank you.
Being seen.
That's exactly the word. We do want that attention, and we shouldn't pretend like we don't.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you, in the way you asked your question, you didn't say, you're not necessarily asking in terms of turning it off, right? You're asking more in how do you then, I don't know if I should use the word manage, but
that's
anyways,
the only one that we can
right?
find at this
Exactly. So I suppose I would phrase it this way. It does especially help to have protocol. Solve the problem before it actually comes. One, I once heard, and I know some men actually go to great extremes in order to do, like, for example, you find there are men who, if I'm with you and with my wife, I will not speak to you directly. That's a bit of, there are men who do that.
Tense.
If you're with your husband, they'll speak to your husband. They will not speak to you. You'll think they're being rude, but they actually, that's them, because they are very popular performers. They have many women who know their name.
Sure.
They have women who follow them backstage to where they go into the changing room just to change, right? You have to understand. Now imagine this is the same person who grew up their whole life dealing with gatekeepers. And now these gates are throwing themselves at him. You understand what I'm saying? So the dynamic is completely different. Like, you as a man grow up without having your ego stroked in that way.
Yes.
And now you're dealing with this weight.
Too much.
So the first thing I would say, in fact, I'm saying this not just to saved men, but just men in general. Have protocol. In other words, this is how protocol works. I've once heard of a guy, few Christians might know, Smith Wigglesworth.
Yes.
Smith used to make it a point that after church, I don't drive a woman home sitting in front. That was part of his protocol. You need to have those. Like, have those things where it'll be in such a way that for you it won't even be a thought. Even when you are tempted to, you will by default apply the protocol. So I have protocol. I tend to not take numbers. Like, that's just my protocol. It doesn't matter where we met. It doesn't matter how good of a time we had. I don't want your numbers. Yeah, you will sit there waiting for me to ask for your... And you know what's beautiful about that? Women have to wait for you.
Hey, he said there is no way
That's the
that you
beauty
can
of it.
enter. Blocked gate.
You understand? So once you apply those protocols, it then becomes much easier for you. But when you let things loose, when you just, open your car to anyone, oh yeah, you want to go where? I'm not saying necessarily apply the same protocol. I'm just explaining how things can easily go wrong if you don't have any protocol. If, for example, if a woman texts you after a certain time, you being a man of power, you being a man in a place of because with great power comes great responsibility. Exercise that great responsibility. You texted me at 9. I'm going to or after 9 or after 10. I'm only going to respond to you at this time. These are just some of them. It really is contextual, and it depends on you. Like, what you feel. I've created enough distance.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So have those protocols. I mean, I'm such a hugger. Like, if you're a guy who's gonna say I'm not gonna hug people, guys, I'm such a hugger. I wish guys gave hugs. I'd gladly. And there are guys that do. And there are dudes that do. I love hugging, guys.
If you see Given and you know him, don't just hug. That's weird. Don't be weird. Don't be weird and just hug people.
Yes, but definitely do have protocol. And I do think that and when you have protocol, it doesn't always have to come across as being rude. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily always have to come across as being rude. Just, I mean, not taking a person's number doesn't come across as rude.
Sure.
It's just not, it's just bye, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, so you don't, some instances you might have to, because protocol is there to protect you from, to protect yourself from the situations where there isn't like someone aggressively coming after you.
Yeah.
Protocol just diffuses the situation naturally. And then you might have those situations where you have to say, no, I'm good. Yeah, that's a different situation altogether.
That is so good. Man, this is such a good conversation.
Right?
To end. But we're gonna cut it off here.
But
now.
I'm putting on a request for yes.
What are you gonna title it? Given
I don't know.
You need to give me a title. Like, come on. All right, we'll think about it.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll think about it. But I think that's definitely something that I would actually love to explore, because I think, again, women don't really understand men like that, and I think the places that we can understand men in the podcast community, a lot of them are very weird and toxic.
True.
So I think it would be really great to have this conversation, especially in a Christian context, with our values, which values purity and marriage and stuff like that. So we'll definitely have this conversation, and guys, just pray that everything goes according to plan. But yeah, I think, just to wrap it up, I think, we should all just be okay with being modest and being okay with the dominion that you already have. You already have power. It's given to you by the authority of Jesus Christ. He said he gave you power to trample over serpents and scorpions. And I think that's the thing that you have to remember. We don't need to be dominating over our brothers and sisters because of our looks or our power, and being like a magnet, I guess. Yeah, a lust magnet.
Yeah.
But be okay with who you are and dress appropriately, act appropriately, not just for yourself, but to honor God, because this is what he requires of us. So yeah, I hope this conversation was great. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment down below. You have to like it because you got to the end of the video, and you have to share it because don't gatekeep this information. You're rude. Anyway, I hope you guys have an incredible time. Until next time, we will see you, and peace out.